You know, those guys over at the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, they're busy these days. They got a lot of stuff to have oversight and look at government reform issues about. And one of them is Representative Jim Jordan, Republican of Ohio, who joins us now on the line. You know, yesterday, big hearing, because you had this guy, Todd Park, who was testifying up on Capitol Hill about the Obamacare website rollout, which everyone agrees has been disastrous. One of the things I wanted to ask you right off the bat, isn't it interesting that Democrats are sort of now muted in their defense of all this?
Yeah, I mean, nothing like the facts to change your tone. I mean, the numbers are down, the website doesn't work, even though they promised us it would work. I mean, think about the broken promises. The president said, if you like your plan, you can keep it. He said premiums will go down, not up, which everyone is experiencing. They're all going up. And then, of course, they said the website will be ready October 1st. So three things they said, three things that turned out false. And now they're telling us they're going to have this thing fixed by November 30th. I'm not holding my breath.
Well, we want to play a little clip of you actually asking questions yesterday at this hearing of Todd Parks.
It's pretty plain language. Didn't test it, no end-to-end testing, done before October 1st, and yet the IT person in charge, whoever the president's referring to, somebody said it's okay to start this thing.
I say it's taken out of context because there's still quite a few...
Mr. Van Rokel, did you know did you know the results of the minor testing before October 1st?
I haven't seen this document, so I'd love to...
Well, you got the fancy title. You're the Chief Information Officer of the United States of America. That's a pretty big title, and you didn't know about this before the biggest domestic policy program website in the history of this country ever is launched, and you didn't know about this?
Sir, I haven't seen this document.
Well, that scares us. Mr. Park, you're supposed to be the guy who's going to solve everything. You're Clark Kent coming out of the phone booth here. Did you know about this before October 1st?
I did not.
And why is it?
Would you like me to explain why?
I would like someone to tell me why you didn't know that end-to-end testing wasn't done.
All right, so...
It is sort of sad, isn't it?
Well, it is, but, I mean, did you get the answers you were seeking?
No, I mean, you got supposedly the smartest minds in IT on that panel, and none of them knew that the independent contractor who tested the system never did an end-to-end test. The security was the testing was never complete, and yet they launched it. And here's the takeaway. October 1st is not in the law. This is just what the bureaucrats and the political people in the White House who were in charge of this decided was going to be the launch date. And so someone in the administration knew that this website wasn't ready, but they couldn't admit to that fact because you know why, guys? They'd be admitting to the fact Republicans were right. This thing should have been delayed. So they couldn't, because of politics, they couldn't admit that fact. So they said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to launch it anyway. We're going to take a risk. We're going to put millions of Americans' personal information at risk, compromise that because that's more important than admitting that than having to admit, oh, Republicans were right. This bill should have been, this law should have been delayed.
Representative Jim Jordan, Republican of Ohio, is our guest right now. And during that beautiful little 1-minute nugget of questioning from yesterday, Representative Jordan, you called this the biggest domestic policy website in the history of the country. It's also the most expensive domestic policy website in the history of the country. And I think arguably it is the biggest disaster of a website in the history of our country. You are on the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. You cannot fire the president unless there are high crimes and misdemeanors. So based on this, you know what would happen in the private sector if something like this happened. Heads would roll. People would be fired. Jim Jordan, who should be fired?
Okay, great question. There are two people at the White House who were in charge of this, who ran this. If you saw the Washington Post story a few weeks ago, David Cutler, healthcare economist, had sent a memo early on in this process, years ago, and he said, don't keep the political people in charge. Hire an outside expert. Hire someone who's got private sector experience. Put them in charge of this operation. The president flatly, according to the article, the president said no. He wanted Nancy Endeparle in charge. So the people who need to come in front of this committee and come from our committee are Nancy Endeparle and Jean Lambro. They're the policy experts on health care in the White House. They're the political appointees.
And the White House has said no to that.
Exactly. Yesterday we get a letter back. Chairman Ice and I sent a letter a week ago saying we want these two individuals to come next week and answer these questions. That's where the buck stops. And we got a nice little letter back from the White House counsel yesterday which says, thanks, but no thanks. And so now the chairman will have to issue a subpoena, and at some point we're going to have them in front of the committee, and they will have to answer the very questions that we asked yesterday that didn't get answered.
And then if they refuse this, is there any possibility they'd refuse the subpoena due to executive privilege? Would they actually push it?
I don't know. You know, the White House pushed it a little bit with Todd Park 2 days ago before our yesterday's hearing. So I don't know. I would doubt. I mean, this thing is such a mess, as you said. I think they got to come.
Let me ask you, though, about the next step, because you got this Representative Fred Upton bill that's going to be before the House next week. There is a couple of great stories out there this morning that talks about Democrats in disarray in the House, how they got behind closed doors, and a lot of people said, look, I'm not sure that I can vote against that bill like the White House wants me to do. How do you feel it coming together? Okay, what's your sense of how that's going to be resolved in the days ahead?
Yeah, I don't know yet, but you're exactly right about the fact that the old line of politics. Most politicians don't see the light; they feel the heat, and Democrats are feeling it right now from constituents. Their offices are just like ours. We get emails and letters every single day. Here was my plan as on the individual market. I just got dropped. Here's what the new premiums are going to be. I can't use the web. They're getting the same letters and the same emails that we're getting. So they are scared. They are nervous, and particularly those Democrat senators in states like Arkansas, Louisiana, South Dakota, North Carolina, Alaska. Yep. They're really nervous because they're in Republican states.
Yeah, and Representative Jordan, we're talking about Representative Upton's bill, which is the if you like your insurance, you can keep your insurance. Yeah. There's another move in the Senate from the Republican and Democratic side. But Senator Marco Rubio yesterday in an interview, he referred to these little fixes as Band-Aids, and you can't put a Band-Aid on this bill. The only way to really fix Obamacare is to start over. Where do you stand on that?
No, that's exactly right. I mean, look, you still want to try to do what you can to help the families that I get the privilege of representing in the 4th District of Ohio. But the bottom line is the only way this thing can be fixed is you got to get rid of this law because it is a bad law. Everyone knows it's a bad law, but it doesn't treat people fairly. We gave a special dispensation to politicians and to big businesses, but yet the rest of America has to comply with this thing. And as we found out over the last 6 weeks, the thing isn't ready. The website isn't ready. It doesn't work.
All right, Representative Jim Jordan, great stuff. Thank you so much, and we will continue to follow what you're doing there.
All right. Keep up the good work. Appreciate it.